Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Table Talk with Brenda Perryman. I'm Brenda Perryman, and I'd like to introduce our guests in just a moment. We're missing one vital portion of our panel today, and we wish her a speedy recovery. Dr. Rose Moten, we miss you. Love you. We'll see you next time. And our other host.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Cheryl Ajamu, owner of the Ajamu Group. We produce the Multicultural Media Luncheon during the Detroit Auto Show.
Good afternoon. I'm attorney Tiffany McEvans, also adjunct professor at Thomas M. Cooley Law School.
Wow, you guys blow me away. I'm Robert Thomas, formerly of the Males Group, but now I'm sitting here with the ladies, but I'm on the Detroit Board of Zoning Appeals.
Yes. And that's something I want to know about, too, because you had a meeting this week, and I want to know what the Zoning Appeals Board does and who they are and so forth. But as is our tradition, we do go back to this day in African American history in Detroit. And August 23rd, 1955, Donald Byrd, a 22-year-old Cass Technical High School and Wayne State University graduate, makes his recording debut as a leader. His all-star cast of Detroiters is assembled for a dynamic live concert recording at the New World stage. Playing with the young trumpeter are saxophonist Yusef Lateef, pianist Barry Harris, and euphonium pioneer Bernard McKinney, bassist Alvin Jackson, and drummer Frank Gant. The vinyl representation, which is called First Flight, will earn 5 stars from Downbeat magazine. Yes, another great Detroiter who became world famous, Mr. Donald Byrd. And thank you, of course, Ken Coleman, for registering that in your book. We really appreciate it. Well, we have a lot to talk about today, and we're going to briefly go into some international news that was really disturbing to me, and that was the chemical weapons in Syria. They had over 1,300 dead and between 3,000 and 5,000 wounded. This meant no guns, just chemicals came out into the air, and they killed people. And what haunted me were the images of the dead laying side by side. I mean, that had to be just horrible, and people who had passed out and they did not succumb, but you don't know what kind of brain damage they have. I think that that is such unfair warfare. Does anybody have an opinion on that?
Well, you know, I think it is. It's a travesty, period. It shouldn't happen. And I believe now it's going to edge the Obama campaign to probably intervene somehow. Now, especially now that they're using chemical warfare against their own citizens. I know the Republican Party initially didn't want them to interject at all in any of these Middle Eastern conflicts, but now they're almost forcing his hand right now to intervene and try to separate some of that stuff.
And a lot of this is gas you can't see.
Exactly.
Yeah. That makes them more dangerous.
Yeah, you can't hide and everything. And it just, I always believe that there but for the grace of God walks I. You know, what if we had some kind of deranged administration over here? Some people think it is deranged, but I don't think it is when you hear about travesties going on like this, who would just set that apart. I mean, just kill innocent women, men, and children. And I quite don't know what they're fighting about. Is it tribal, or I just don't know what they're fighting about that means that much that you have to do that. I mean, it's just a gas attack.
On innocent people.
Yeah.
Unfair. I mean, it just seems like the innocent and the poor just get the short end of the stick.
Yeah, I want to also remind you that, I mean, they have a different political process than we are used to here in America. I mean, their process has been ran by their religions in that area. So when you introduce a democracy into a process that's, been run by a dictatorship, then yeah, you're going to have some issues. It's going to be a lot of pushback, and unfortunately, they're going to some extremes here, with using gas. Now that region is not foreign to using gas. They have Syria's done it.
It was
Egypt. They had some issues
Yeah.
before. You had several countries out there, even Iraq before the Gulf War, using these type of chemical weapons on his own.
Well, I just wanted to say, I just don't understand how people could be so cruel. Another thing is, democracy must not, it's not for everybody. And the United States goes in and they try to make these countries democratic and so forth. After years and years of fighting, religious fighting and a tribal fighting, I just don't think that democracy is for everybody. And they tried to get that in Egypt, and you see what Egypt is doing. They're going crazy over there. So I just, wish them the best of luck. And the United States, I would never want to be president.
No.
So stressful.
You see how the president's here grade over
It was like
short
3
duration
months.
of time.
Was it 3 months? Yeah.
He's still cute, but I mean, really,
Oh, wow.
his hair did great. I shouldn't say that, but he's still, you have to be a mighty strong person to even, think about all the problems you have
Every
in the
day.
world
Every day.
and here.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's wanting you to do something for them,
And to bring your point home, though, you look at countries like China, who don't have that much of a democratic process, where the people can enforce their will on the government, but is run by a communistic society, and it's run very well, but it's still a communistic society. It's not what we would look at as a democracy, but it's run very well. In fact, they borrowed America a lot of, they let America borrow a lot of money from that.
Yeah, isn't that
state.
amazing?
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Well, we're going to go on to some national news, and we're going to get through these stories pretty quickly because we have state and local, and then I want to deal with Don Lemon's commentary again. And Bradley Manning, could you speak a little to that? PFC Bradley Manning, who was sentenced to 35 years for leaking classified military info.
Yeah, well, you just hit the nail on the head there. The private that leaked all that the information about the government to the rest of the world was sentenced, I believe, 35 years in prison, and now he wants to claim that he's a woman.
I
He wants
know.
a gender change. He wants to be called
Hold
instead
on,
of.
we have a call. My producer is not here today, so I have to take the calls. And if you get cut off, don't worry about it. Call back. Good afternoon.
How are you, Brenda?
I'm just fine, thanks. Clyde. You have a question or comment?
I had a comment. I just wanted to say that was a great show today. That young man, I like his filmmaking. I think he's going to be all right. He was
Thank
very
you.
creative.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that kind of talent to Detroit. We need to see more of that. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yes. Anyway, yes, I wanted to just make a comment about what I've been seeing in reports. Did you all watch Let It Rip last night? And Robert Davis
yes,
and the other folks on there
can we-
ripping Janice Winfrey?
Can we talk
Not
about
just-
that when we get to the state and local news?
Okay.
But yeah, it's on our agenda. It is there, and we're going to get to it as soon as possible. We want to wipe out this national news first because there's some stories that people should know about.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and we'll get back to that. Do you want to call back?
I'll do that.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, everybody. So you were saying now he says he's a woman.
Yeah, he wants to change his name to Chelsea Manning instead of Bradley Manning. So he wants, I believe he wants to be in that transgender population.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure it's some rules to come with that, especially I think you're talking about Title IV?
It's not going to happen.
Okay.
He's already been, sentenced as a male. If there was a situation where he had already been through or was going through the process to become transgender or in that realm, then we would have a different situation. But he is a man, he is a male, and he's already been sentenced. There are different populations once you're in prison, depending on the type of facility that you're in, where they'll isolate you from different inmates depending on what your situation is, if it's medical, if it's, some type of situation like that. And I think that's what he's looking for or going for, so that he won't be in the general population in prison. Yeah,
it's the Title VII Civil Rights Act of 1964. That would fall under that envelope there. And I believe he is going to try, like you said before, he is going to try to seek that separation and probably some leniency. 35 years and holding out now as a woman. I'm pretty sure he's going to.
Well,
maybe only speculating, but
they're going to appeal to President Obama to pardon him as a whistleblower. I think that is the craziest stuff I ever heard. He gave these secrets to WikiLeaks, and now he wants to, and they showed pictures of him with a blonde wig driving a car, and he's now a woman, and he wants to be Chelsea Manning. That is, you can't make this stuff up, can you, Cheryl?
No, you cannot.
Okay.
Which is interesting is that they want both Manning and I forgot the other character's name, and also gave up government secrets. Both of them be called whistleblowers, and
right.
I think it's just ridiculous. Both of them.
They could be called traitors.
Yeah, I believe they are traitors.
I believe so. And the thing is, they say they think they're doing the right thing. Well, I think they need to get counseling first, especially when they're talking about my country. San Diego mayor, he resigned, finally. He's resigning today. And he's been accused of sexual harassment and even sexually harassing women who had been raped in the military, who came to give reports on that. He's harassed them. He's taken women. He's done headlocks, or he'll go and, and he claimed ignorance, talking about he did not know that was something you could get in trouble for. Where has he been? Sexual harassment in the workplace. What can you get for that, Tiffany?
Well, we already know ignorance is no excuse for the law, and it just depends on the San Diego's criminal statutes as far as what he can receive. And to be completely honest, I haven't heard of any actual charges as of yet, just that 18 women have come forward saying that they have been harassed. We don't know because the agreement that the mayor has reached has been kept confidential. So I don't know if the settlement entailed no criminal charges. It's a possibility. We don't know yet. And may not ever know unless we wait and see if he's actually going to be criminally charged, but that it is a crime to sexually harass someone. Everyone doesn't always pursue criminal charges in those type of situations. Sometimes it's just a civil suit, but to say that he wasn't aware or he didn't know was, is no excuse at all.
Yeah, and I believe the bigger picture is that he resigned, and I believe he resigned not because of his, because he wanted to. He wanted to stay as the mayor. And in fact, I think the city council chimed in and accepted him still standing as the mayor. But you have federal and state government that came in as Democrats united and asked him to go ahead and resign.
And that's the first Democratic mayor they have had in many, many years. Mm-hmm. And why would you put your career on the right. And it's hard for women in the workplace these days too. Sometimes working side by side with men, sometimes having men as their authority. Sometimes people, they do sexually harass you or try to. It's just a bad situation. Anyone else have any views on that?
Well, unfortunately, when you're put in a position of power, it sometimes goes to the individual's head, regardless if it's male or female. Female employers have been known to harass their male employees and counterparts as well. It's just a power struggle or a power trip that individuals take that, nothing will happen to me, or the individual won't report it, and even if they do, nothing will happen, and then you get the response, well, I didn't know that this was sexual harassment.
A shame. Now, Tiffany, we talked about what happened in Decatur, Georgia. That was a scary situation. can you talk a little about it?
There was a 20-year-old young man who came into an elementary school armed with an AK-47. And he went into the school building and he actually asked for the news media to be called. And there was a bookkeeper by the name of Antoinette Tuff that he actually met up with and was speaking to. And she contacted 911 and was relaying the information that this young man was telling her. The sad part about this is that he told them that he wasn't trying to hurt any children, that he wanted the school to come.
He had an AK-47.
He had an AK-47, loaded AK-47 with additional magazines. Ms. Tuff has been stated to be a hero because what she did was exactly what you're supposed to do in that type of situation. And although it was extremely stressful, she took control of the situation by calming down. She talked to this young man. She told him that the best thing for him to do would be to surrender, that he hadn't hurt anyone or himself, and to make sure that that wouldn't happen, that he needed to, put his weapon down, disarm himself, and she was able to talk to him and calm him down. And it's later come out that this young man has had a history of mental health issues, which is a concern of mine in the criminal justice system, because a lot of times individuals that commit crimes and are sentenced to prison and or jail need treatment from mental health facilities, and we don't always have the capabilities to give these individuals the treatment that they need. And with his prior mental health issues and he also had a criminal background, it's clear and evident that this young man actually needs help. It was indicated that he also contacted his sister before this happened and told her that he loved her and that he had an AK-47, but they weren't actually sure what was going to happen.
Did they say where he got the gun?
No, I haven't heard as to where he actually received the gun, but there was reported that he had taken a picture previously with the weapon that they believed to be the same weapon that he went into the school with. The good thing about this story is that no one was actually hurt. However, the impact that this situation has on the children could be devastating for some time to come. And I hope that the parents and the school administration are providing the children with counseling, because I'm sure they will definitely need it.
And that happens so many places, that people with mental health issues get a hold of a gun and they just want to take people out. I say cut out the middleman, just take yourself out.
I think that some of the problems is, like Tiffany said before, the defunding of mental health facilities.
Yeah.
Right.
And especially after this, actually during this economic turn we had in the nation, they started seriously defunding these facilities.
Well, they started doing it here in Michigan years ago under Governor Engler.
And
Yes,
that's why you have what
that
you
is
have,
correct.
like roam around downtown, Mack and Warren, between Mack and Warren and Woodward. You have a lot of guys. And then I think they had one on Dexter and the Boulevard. You have a lot of guys that roam around with serious mental health issues that's not being addressed, and no one's going to address it unless they get into a situation like this and a standoff with police.
Gee, that is just scary. Well, I'm happy no one was killed, but having been at a school at one time where a young man was killed that morning, the sense of panic, the sense of being not able to function, really, because in that case, I remember the principal, and it happened back in the 80s in Highland Park, and it was a young man had been bullied, and he went to his locker and he had a gun. He brought his father's gun to school and shot the young man who had been bullying him. And the chaos, it was right in the beginning of school. It was like at 8 o'clock in the morning or 5 minutes to 8. And people started running all through the halls. I mean, it was crazy, running to classrooms, just the panic. And we as teachers had to maintain, wherein the principal got on the PA, and I'll never forget this as long as I live. He said, if you want to go home, go home. So people were calling their parents. And some people went home, but a lot of kids stayed the rest of the day. So we had to, as teachers, with maybe not a lot of training in quelling a situation, had to talk to those kids all day, had to talk, let them talk too. I mean, it's just so devastating, and you are never the same again. You're never the same. And imagine if you have children, and you worry about them going into their schools.
Especially young children.
Oh, God.
Especially young children. Because how do you train younger kids, like 2 or 3 years old, to prepare for if a gunman comes to their school?
But it's unfortunate. You remember in Newtown, they marched the kids out and everything, and the teachers had to remain calm. You knowing how scared the teachers are. A lot of people don't realize that the staff is scared. And I applaud this Mrs. Tufts, because she really talked to the guy. She was talking to the guy. She was talking to the police and got him to walk out and everything. And she said, they're not going to hurt you, blah, blah, blah. I mean, she was good.
She was very good. Very good.
Now we'll see how much press she gets. Do you think she'll get a lot
She
of press?
got a lot of press so far. She was thanking God, definitely, right after the ordeal, especially when he was arrested. Yeah, it was on, I believe, CBS, NBC. So she has some press time.
Okay.
I don't know what I would do in that situation.
You'd be amazed how you react under pressure. And I think knowing your history as being a phenomenal teacher as well as parent, your concern first kicks in for your students.
It does. It does. It really does. You want to protect they're your wards. And if you're sometimes you're with your students more than you're with your kids
You are.
almost. And they become like your children and everything. And we had to, before I retired, I remember we were doing a lot of drills to protect ourselves, putting these green pieces of paper or red. We put red in the glass door, and people passed them. That meant we were on lockdown. We had lockdown exercises, just like we used to have. Remember tornado drills?
Tornado drills, yeah.
We have lockdown things now. Society has definitely changed. Cheryl, an interesting report that they had about blood sugar and
Right.
Alzheimer's. Would you talk to that?
Recently, the New England Journal of Medicine released a study stating how levels of blood sugar increase the risk for dementia and Alzheimer's. The more important thing is that people are not really treating. I mean, they're like putting a Band-Aid on it, but no one's really saying how the disease can be eliminated.
Well, they're still studying Alzheimer's, but the blood sugar thing, so many people have diabetes.
And I think that's directly related to diet. I mean, people aren't eating healthy. We're trying, but I think that is directly related to the diet, our lifestyle.
Now, you changed the way you eat.
Yeah, I eat more healthy now. And I know I was recently in a class, and we were talking about dementia and Alzheimer's and some of the Alzheimer, I'm sorry. And some of the remedies that people could do that are more holistic. But the primary thing is that you've got to change what you're eating. You know, not a lot of sodium, not a lot of white flour, white sugar. You know, more vegetables, more fruit and nuts. Our teacher told us that the brain is shaped like a walnut if you really look at it. And she suggested that that's what you should eat if you want to strengthen your brain.
The reason why I said Alzheimer's is because we call it so many different things.
I know.
Alzheimer's, yeah, dementia, so forth and so on. And I know somebody right now who's kind of going through questioning themselves because they're missing their freeway exit. And just some other things, and they're testing people early. Some people get that early, and then some people, like my mother, who will be 94, she remembers everything. She's better than me. But, you know, I guess, I don't know, does it run in the family? I'm going to have someone on my morning show to talk about that.
Because I don't know, because I'm not a doctor. Genetics may play a role, but based on just the research that I'm starting to do and just the classes I'm taking, it's kind of directly to what your lifestyle is, your eating, your diet. What are you eating? If you're eating a lot of pork, you're going to have high blood pressure, and eventually you're going to have some other disease.
Everything causes everything.
Yeah.
You know, even if you read or watch the commercials for, you know, different medicines and what they're supposed to cure, the list for what you could possibly get from taking the medication is always a lot longer. So,
You could have a stroke, even death. You
Right.
could have a this, but we want you to
I
take
think you
it.
can extend it as far as saying it's always studies on coffee, both good and bad. And,
Right.
You
Yeah.
know, every other day is bad for you this day, and it has some good attributes the next day.
And then red wine.
Yeah.
I think everything just comes down to portion control.
Yeah.
Everything in moderation.
Because anything that you do in excess is
Not my fault.
harmful for
Right.
Not
Well,
my
they
fault.
say too much of anything is abuse. They say that, so I don't know. Okay, let's get into a little state and local news. We're going to get some light news first, and that's the speed limit, how they want to increase the speed limit to 80 miles an hour. I think that is crazy because, you know, people already are doing 80, 85 on the freeway. What do you think is going to happen?
They're going to do 100, 105. I think
Oh
it's
my
absolutely
God.
ridiculous. 80 miles per hour for the limit is definitely too high, in my opinion.
And I think the state legislator that proposed this new piece of legislation, actually he's proposing for a study be done on the streets before he rolls out any type of legislation. But I believe it's geared towards the rural areas and not the urban areas like Detroit. I mean, I just got off the freeway, and you know, in Detroit it's 55 coming down 75, within the city limits, and you had a guy doing 80. How did I know? Because I was doing 70. But but yeah, I mean, swerving from lane to lane. We don't need that here in the urban areas. And I know they do it in other states, and most of them are southern states, like Nevada and Arizona, like we discussed before.
But speed kills.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does, and you got to keep up, and you got to be on that freeway and not look in your rearview mirror and say, "Oh, they're chasing me." I've been in cars with people who looked up and all of a sudden start getting paranoid on the freeway. It seems like the other cars behind me are chasing me. I got to keep up, you know. It's crazy. I hope it doesn't because people are already going fast enough. Now, this was the week that was. I'll tell you. I'm watching television and I see breaking news that Mike Duggan was no longer the winner of the write-in campaign. Can you tell me about that, Robert?
Yes, sure. As we all saw on television, I believe it was probably about 18 to 20,000 votes that was into question, and they said that the city clerk. I guess she announced the winner a little too soon, or gave the numbers up a little too soon after the election. So I believe the count stopped around 8 o'clock or so. Well, the polls closed at 8.
Yeah.
And probably about, I think, 11, 12 o'clock, they announced a winner that was ahead. And at that time, it was the write-in candidate. They didn't ever announce, who the write-in candidate was, but they assumed it was Mike Duggan. So Mike Duggan beat out Benny Napoleon, probably about 20,000 votes. But these votes came into question because they're all write-in votes. So the question now was Mike Duggan truly ahead by 20,000 votes?
Well, then they said the other day, it had to do with what do you call them?
Hashtag.
Hashtags.
Yeah.
Wow. But they said there's nowhere in the government that says you have to use them.
No, but traditionally they do use hashtags in all forms of government whenever you're doing an election. Per person, per vote, you put a slash there.
And when you get to the fifth, you put that
The line.
The line.
line through.
Yeah, but I think during this campaign, this election, they were using numbers and hashtags, which became a problem.
Different precincts did it differently.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Which extends itself, like I said before, to the training part. There was a debacle earlier, the day before the election. There was some confusion about when these poll workers and election supervisors are going to be trained, and they were trained
They weren't
up to
trained?
18 hours before the actual election, before the actual primary election, and they're supposed to have been trained weeks ahead of time.
They weren't trained?
Well, they're trained hours ahead of time, up to 18 hours ahead of time, instead of the 3 weeks that was required.
Good afternoon, caller.
It's Clyde calling back. Can I get in a conversation?
Yes. quickly.
Okay. Well, I was just going to expound on what the young man was saying about the questioning of the training of the poll workers as it relates to the hashtag markings. In addition to that, I think at some point probably the absentee ballots are going to be challenged as well, because a lot of people are alleging other candidates that all of the absentee ballot signatures look suspiciously alike. So, but that hasn't been raised in the media, other than Robert Davis saying that last night on Let It Rip. I don't know if you all watched that.
I watched some of it, yeah.
Oh, okay. So they touched on it briefly, but you could tell too. It looks like the two people there were supporters of Mike Duggan, the lawyer and the guy who's on the school board. But anyway, so we'll see what happens. But I'll listen off there. Thank you for letting me comment.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, because you were at one of those polling places, right? Oh, I guess he's gone. Sorry about that. Because Clyde had said the other week that he was at one of the polling places and it seemed very disorganized. So,
Well, the talk and concern now is what actually is going to happen, because some individuals are saying that the 18 to 20,000 votes should just be thrown out altogether,
oh my God.
which is absurd.
Yeah, and that's not going to happen. They're going to actually count those votes. And that's why after the Wayne County, was it border canvassers, tossed out those 20,000 votes and said we're not going to rule on it, they're going to leave it up to the state border canvassers. Okay,
that's my question. That's my question. Why all of a sudden they say that they're not going to use those votes, and then they decline to say that? I mean, they decided not to make a ruling on that, and then they were going to pass it to somebody.
To the state.
Yeah.
They want the state to make the ruling on what votes goes where when it came to the irregularities that was going on with Detroit's primary.
Now, you think a lot of that emanated from the office of the clerk?
Well, I mean, she's in charge, so yeah.
The buck has to stop
You know,
somewhere.
before the primary, they actually came out and stated that it may take up to 2 weeks, maybe even longer, for the votes to be counted. So the fact that that time was not taken, even though it was projected that it would take that long to actually go through and accurately count, is a problem, and there has to be accountability somewhere. I'm not saying that it's anybody's fault. However, we are put in these positions for a purpose and a reason. So to not take the time, and already knowing that this would be an election that had some difficulties and challenges all the way up through and up to the point of the primary election in and of itself, and then to not take those proper precautions and do the proper steps to make sure we are not in the situation that we are now. It is about accountability, and unfortunately, she called the vote too quick.
Yeah. And it probably extends beyond that. I think this whole election cycle, she's done a couple of things that were probably wrong, including this. I think this is probably the biggest debacle. I don't think Detroit needs to have another black eye over any political issues, period. And I mean, this is proof that we need the right leadership in each one of these positions, period. We can't stand for mediocrity like we've been getting and accepting as a city.
And it's unfortunate now because even mayoral candidate Benny Napoleon is asking for the federal government to step in. And what's disheartening to me is we have elected officials in these positions to do these certain tasks. So now, as Robert just indicated, you have another cloud over Detroit with elected officials not being able to do their job.
Incompetence.
My goodness. What do you think it is? What do you think it is where we get so lazy that we can't train people well, or people aren't accountable, or people get on a job and they just get lazy and half do the job? I mean, it's ridiculous because it seems like they don't believe that somebody's going to come behind them and find out that they did the wrong thing.
Yeah. And you know, on top of that, I think it also lends credence to a lot of the conspiracy theorists out there. And, you know, there's always somebody coming out to disenfranchise a vote and things of that nature. And this right here, definitely sheds a light on that.
Well, they say that this coming Tuesday, they're supposed to certify the vote. But after they certify the vote, I think there's going to be a recount. If any of you know about that, please call in and let me know, because I hear there's going to be a recount of all the votes. Had you heard anything about that?
I haven't heard it yet, but
I heard it this morning.
I suspect that I will hear about it when I leave out of here.
Oh, I heard about it at TV 33 right here,
Oh,
WHPR. And we had, in fact, I'm going to be having the candidates on my morning show. And then I'm going to have, next Friday I have Mr. Duggan. And then a few weeks after that I have Mr. Napoleon. But I also would like to challenge them to come on to Table Talk.
Oh.
And yes, I'm going to have one come to the ladies panel and one come to the gentlemen's panel, so that we could grill them. I'm going to paint the seat hot, red, and make it hot. But former candidate Lisa Howes threw her support behind Mike Duggan this week.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that, anybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
We all heard about it.
Yeah, I think everybody heard about that. Lisa House experienced a break-in in her home, and when she was interviewed,
Few
she
hours
said,
after.
it was a few hours after she had announced that she would be endorsing Mike Dugan. Duggan, I can't.
Everybody calls him Mike Dugan. So many people say, even I heard him on Angelo's show, and people call him Mr. Dugan, and he said Duggan. He said, and the person says Dugan. It just, it's kind of crazy. But I've seen some just terrible, mean comments that they've made about her since she did that. And I just think that people have a right to throw their support around behind anybody they want.
I have a comment. I just have to. She can support whomever she chooses to support. I think that we need to separate the two. The fact that her home was broken into is extremely unfortunate, but I don't think that her announcing who she wants to support for mayor had anything to do with her home being broken into. Now, it's unfortunate and ironic that it happened at the same time, and I think actually it's unfortunate that she chose that forum to announce what had happened to her at the time that she, to indicate and state that it was soon after she had announced who she would be supporting for mayor. We all know that there was another mayor whose home had been broken into, and the young gentleman, I forgot what city it is, but his home had been broken into. Is it Inkster? It'll come back to me. But his home had been broken into. There are a lot of individuals, unfortunately, in the metro Detroit area, not just Detroit, who are experiencing vandalism, regardless if it's someone breaking into their car, breaking into your home. Just things happen. Unfortunate things happen. But I just want to clarify and state that even though it happened, in close proximity to her announcing who she wanted to support, I don't think that people should automatically make the assumption that one had anything to do with the other.
Right.
Yeah, and I like Lisa Howes. I like her campaign. But I think this is definitely a political misstep on her part for intertwining the two. The coincidence is a burglary. It happens to a lot of Detroiters. You stay in the area, you get burglarized from time to time.
Oh gosh, you said like so
Right, like
casual.
it's okay.
From time to time you get
Sometimes it
burgled.
happens.
But no, it happens. You hear
Yes,
about
it
it every
does.
day.
Yes, it does.
Robberies and people getting carjacked, including burglaries. But this is a political misstep on her part to mention another campaign and tie that into this burglary.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I mean, because people started putting that together. I think one probably doesn't have anything to do with the other.
And she is passionate about the city of Detroit, so I hope that it doesn't cause a negative impact on her as an individual one way or the other, because I think that she is very passionate in what she does.
And she says she spoke to both campaigns and she analyzed them both. Matter of fact, she says she spoke to both campaigns twice. And she decided to go behind Duggan because he had a strong neighborhoods campaign going But you know, people are, like you said before, they're entitled to their own opinions. There's a lot of supporters who like Lisa, but won't support her now because she's behind Duggan, and they're voicing their opinions. And you have people that didn't support her in the first place, but now calling her all types of names, painting pictures.
I mean, it's
and whatnot.
horrible. It's horrible.
And you know, the
It's not
response to that
necessary.
is, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, do your own research. Take the time to go and find out what each candidate's campaign platform is about. Ask the proper questions. Don't just listen to what they say. Or don't, even with the news reports, question things, ask questions, do your own research so that you can be an informed voter.
I don't know. I think the media sometimes oversteps its bounds too,
Yeah, they do.
and being a member of it. But
And they're slanted.
yeah, they are. They are. I try not to show any bias. I try.
Do you?
Only thing I don't like is ignorance. I just don't like ignorance. I'm biased about a lot of things, but ignorance I can't deal with. And anybody who shows it, they turn me off.
To think about it, as I was going to these political candidates forums, the mayoral forums, you know, there weren't packed houses. So a lot of people are getting information by hearsay. They are listening to media. They're listening to Channel 2, Channel 4, Channel 7, and formulate their own opinions based off those conversations. They're not going to these political forums. In fact, the only political forum I ever seen that was packed was the one at the Charles Wright Museum.
Oh, okay. That one was packed. That was packed. Okay. Another thing, we're kind of changed the subject a little bit. Oh, here's a call. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
Hi to you and your guest.
Hi.
I'm really calling in regarding a caller that called in to Minister Malik Shabazz's show this past Tuesday night when Mr. Duggan was a guest on there. And the caller asked at that time, how does Mr. Duggan sign his name? Does he sign his name Mike or Michael? Now, my question is, when we go to the poll to vote, we must use our given names to do that. We can't use a nickname or abbreviated name. Is there a requirement that a given name must be used in an election for anyone who is a candidate?
I'm not
A
sure.
technicality is what I'm
That's a
speaking
good
of.
question. That's a very good question.
A
Honestly, I'm not
technicality.
sure.
Well, I don't know, but you know, some people just go by their nickname.
But this is a legal election. This
Right.
is
She
not
has a good
just
point.
a.
That's a very good point.
Even if they put his name Michael and in parentheses put Mike,
they do
you
that
know, you
sometimes.
understand what I'm saying?
Very good. I wonder
And
how
that's
it's
been
going
crossing
to.
my mind, and I just thought I would throw that out, you know.
That's a very salient point. What's your name?
I'm Minister Cora Burrell.
Hi, Minister
Yes, and
Burrell.
I'm following the movement along, and sometimes things that are not really detected by someone else, I seem to have a tendency to become a little curious about them. And that's
Right.
one of them. Is his name Michael Duggan or his name Mike? In that case, Michael Duggan has not been a candidate.
Interesting
I'm
point.
just-
I'm gonna check that out.
We'll do some research on that.
We'll do
Okay.
some research on that. Very good. Very
Thank you
good
for
question.
taking my call.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Now, I want to get, oh, wow, we're always rushing. I want to talk real quick about this rash of carjackings they had in Detroit. There were 8 carjackings in just a matter of hours. And I think that carjackings need to be met with at least a minimum penalty once they catch these carjackers. And then a lot of them are now using weapons. A lady, she was carjacked and they shot her in the stomach. She was inside the car, they shot her in the stomach. What is that? I mean, can't we do something about that? That is just awful.
It starts at everything, personally to me, starts at home. You have to have some type of guidance and structure. You know, every one of us up here had choices and opportunities in life. And as far as I know, no one up here has gone out to carjack anyone. There was a situation a few months ago where a young man had carjacked an individual in the area of Evergreen between 6 and 7 Mile. There was a gas station over in the area. And the gentleman that he attempted to carjack actually had a license to carry a weapon. The gentleman ended up firing a shot, and he shot and killed this young man. Well, the individual who died, the young man who was trying to commit the carjacking, his family was just outraged because they were shouting he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to pull his weapon on him, negating the fact that this young man had a weapon and was in the process of stealing this man's car. So our priorities and everything have just become extremely distorted. And I don't know where it started or how it started, but as I indicated, I think it starts at home. So now even I'm a board member now of a program called the Detroit Recovery Project. And their primary focus and goal is to assist and help individuals who have been incarcerated. And not only those individuals that have been incarcerated, but also the children of those individuals, to help facilitate and get them back into society in a productive manner, and to help facilitate a productive lifestyle for their children as well.
We have a couple of calls. That was excellent. Good afternoon. Hello? Hello?
Hi, I would like to say, first of all, his name is Michael Duggan. And second of all, I would like to say when I went to vote, my number on my ballot was 129. And when it was fed through the machine, it was 125 that showed up. And I always thought the numbers were supposed to match. So I asked the lady, I said, well, isn't my number supposed to match the number on the machine? And she said, well, we had spoiled ballots. Now, it was 4 numbers off. When I spoke
They had
to my
what ballots?
Spoiled ballot.
when I spoke to my girlfriend that lived on the west side, her number was 4 numbers off, and it didn't match the number on her ballot. So I was just wondering, is the number on the ballot supposed to match the number on the machine?
As it relates to the number that you receive when you receive your ballot, that was the number in which you came in. So if you came in that order and you were 129, you were voting at the same time that number 128, 127, and 126 were also voting. It was just that you completed your ballot before they did. So when you put your ballot into the machine, you were 124, and those other individuals were still in line. But your number is that you were originally given was the number order in which you came in to fill out your form to receive your ballot.
Okay, okay. My ballot said 129. When I fed it through, it said 125.
Because you were the 121st person to put theirs, the 25th person to put theirs in.
So those other individuals were still completing their ballot. You completed your ballot before number 128, 127, and 126. Does that make sense to you?
Honestly, first of all, it was only 2 other people there.
I was about to say, how many people are in front of her?
At the polling place, they have District 4. They had different areas with their own different machines. And there was only 2 other people there besides me. And the girl told me that the numbers didn't match well because it had been spoiled ballots.
She said it was a spoiled ballot?
No, I asked her, why is the number on the machine 125 and mine is 129? She said, because we had spoiled ballots.
I don't understand that. Spoiled ballots?
Yeah, she said there were spoiled ballots during the
Oh,
day.
that
Didn't match.
somebody
And
messed
that-
up
and
a
that
ballot?
didn't make sense to me.
Had you heard of that?
No.
We'll investigate that too.
I wrote it down too. We'll look into
Okay,
that.
we'll investigate. We'll have all these answers
girlfriend,
next
She lives way on the other side. I live on the east side. My girlfriend that lives on Grand River. She said when she voted, the numbers were, when she fed her ballot through, it was 4 numbers different. It was 4 numbers off also.
Wow.
Yeah,
Goodness.
I heard about the spoiled ballots and during that Florida debacle with the presidency.
That's all I wanted to know. I was just curious. The
We're
girl
gonna
told me
find
that
out.
the number
Watch
on my
us next
ballot
week.
didn't
We'll
match
have
the
an
number
answer.
on the machine because it had been spoiled ballots during the day.
Okay, we have another quick call.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Hi, Brenda. How are you?
Fine. How
Good
are
afternoon,
you,
yeah.
Thomas?
You know what? In terms of this carjacking thing, I think that there should be some local legislation, meaning state legislation, made. to put it in the category of terrorism, because that's all of these clowns are. They are urban terrorists who walk around here, or however they're getting around, wreaking their terrorism on, decent, abiding citizens. And I think that they should be stuck with the same kind of time that, the guys that go out here and, do that terrorism thing. Because, that is, somebody walks up on you, sticks a gun in your face and takes your car. Come on, let's get real.
Did you see the film on television with the woman?
Yeah,
she
I
had
saw
the
it.
balloon.
I saw it.
She had the balloons, and she
Right.
put her child in the back seat,
Mm-hmm.
and then she was getting ready to put the balloons in, and the guy coming from one way, a
Right.
guy coming from another way,
Mm-hmm.
and she jumped out. They started taking her car, and she had to get her child out the back seat just in time and run away.
Right.
And two guys jumped in the car and stole her car.
Yeah, but I would like to see some legislation made where, if you go out there and you get caught with carjacking, you're going to do the same kind of time as these doggone international terrorists do.
Okay.
To that point, Thomas, I would like to also, if that's going to be implemented, I would like to see legislation for more jobs and education in this area too, to help deter some of that.
Let me tell you something.
Some of the crime.
I'm probably going to be the most unpopular person in metropolitan Detroit, because I'm just saying too many young people are just giving up, and I know a lot of people are saying it's hopeless, this and that. What is it? School is too hard?
Brenda, you know what? Everything emanates from home.
Yes.
And if
Yes.
home and if home is
You can't
dysfunctional and people are not taking care of business
Right.
at home, Brenda,
You
I
can't
just
legislate
retired
home,
from teaching.
but-
Those kids who are in those kinds of situations that go on to do well, they do it against the odds. But and I think you have more that do than don't. But and no, you're not going to be the most hated person, Brenda.
No, because honestly, what I'm seeing
We need
now
to stop
is
coddling
some
these
people do not. They think that's the easiest way to get some money.
Exactly.
Tiffany,
I have to comment, and I understand how serious, trust me, carjacking is, but all defendants are not equal. I had a young man who was charged with carjacking. He was at a college preparatory high school, the only male of 6 children. Both of his mom and dad are at home. He was the youngest foreman over 20 adult men. However, he allowed peer pressure from 2 other gentlemen, and he one day said yes and went ahead and went along. And I'll never forget it, because at that time I was before the Honorable Judge Annette Berry. And she looked at my client and said the same thing that I had been arguing and fighting for. Why are you here? You are not the average person that comes before me. So we have to be careful when we legislate different things and start to put mandatory sentences on different things, because, I could have 20 clients all charged with the same thing, but every situation is different.
Believe me, I understand that. But you know the consequences when you walked up on that person and stuck that gun in their face and took their car.
I agree with that,
Okay?
definitely.
So, like Beretta said, you do the crime, you do the time. And like I said.
Okay, Thomas, I got time
Brenda,
for one
thanks
more
for taking
call.
the
I
time.
only have a minute. Oh, God, the phone is ringing off
They
the
do
hook.
call the time when they get called.
Good afternoon.
Hi, it's Dr. Rose. Great show, guys.
Hi,
Hey.
Rose.
Look, I'm watching you guys with my Vicodin in hand, but I just want to call in. I had
taking your
hearing on
place.
this topic. I was carjacked myself at the age of 16 on my way to work. And I agree with the last caller that there needs to be some legislation that makes, and Brenda, I think you mentioned it too, where like carrying a weapon and you get an automatic 2 years if you don't have the permit to carry. There needs to be some type of blanket sentence for these individuals. When I was carjacked, the guy, he had a knife and forced me out of my car. The people in my workplace were able to come out and surround the car because he didn't know how to drive a stick shift. And they had bricks and they had sticks and they were getting ready to break the windows, and eventually he took off. But when the police came, they told my coworkers and the people who owned the company that if they had broken that window and harmed that man, he could have sued the company, even though he was committing a crime at the time.
Gee, amazing. Well, the bewitching hour is at hand, and I do have a call that I can't take. I'm sorry. Next time, start calling in earlier. But Dr. Rose, we hope you're feeling better.
Yeah.
I'll be better. I'm one day at a time, but I'm getting there.
Well, we'll see you next
care.
week. We
You
miss
will.
you on the panel.
Great show, guys.
And
I
maybe we'll
enjoyed
get
it.
to
It's
Don
nice
Lemon's
being on the other
comments.
side watching you all. And
Ah.
Robert, don't get comfortable.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
And to my other caller, they're about to turn me off. Well, let me see who this is. Can I help you? Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hi. It's,
Talk quickly.
We got 20
Hello?
seconds. Have 20 seconds.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I was a victim of robbery. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I walked into the Family Dollar, and the people and the customers at the store, they had everybody in the back, the kids and everybody, and it was 2 men in the front and 1 in the back, and they say they're gonna kill all of us. So they told me, "Excuse me, bitch, give up what you got." They took my chain, they took my wallet, and they took my watch. But you know one thing about it, I'm alive, and I don't think about it no more. So I tell anybody out there, if they got a gun on your head, you better give it to them.
Give it to
They're
them.
not playing out here.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so
That's
much.
A fine balance you gotta walk through.
Everybody, thanks for joining us today. We enjoyed you. We enjoyed the conversation, and pretty soon I'm going to be able to get through the whole agenda and everything. I'd like to thank those of you who watch every week. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. And we will have the answers to those questions next week right here on Table Talk with Brenda Perryman. Great job, guys.
Thank you.
And we will see you next week. Thank you, Robert.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Table Talk is Detroit's only talk show where co-hosts come to the table to discuss issues that affect you. Join Brenda and her co-host Cheryl Ajamu, Dr. Rose Moten, attorney Tiffany McEvans, Ken Coleman, Chris Summerall, and Robert E. Thomas. Join us every Friday at 1 p.m. on TV 33 WHPR, Comcast 20 in Detroit. Streams live on www.tv33whpr.com. Got an issue? Bring it to the table.